All right, good afternoon, my people. There is this post on Punch newspaper, Xenophobia, Tinubu direct Nigerian mission in South Africa to establish crisis unit. My immediate response to this post, which was made today on Punch newspaper, 7th of May 2026, is why will Nigerian mission in South Africa wait for the president to direct them to set up a crisis unit? A crisis unit should be by default. In fact, for strategic organizations either operating locally or operating internationally, you should know that crisis situations could occur. And so you should have a crisis situation, have a business continuity plan, have a crisis management plan, have a crisis recovery plan. As in, this is what is understood in the private sector, but I don't know why in the government sector we have to wait for the president to direct that a crisis unit be set up. So if there are bureaucracies in that regard, I think it needs to be debottlenecked so that government organizations can be efficient, can be ready to deal with crises as they occur, and be ready to protect lives and properties as, of course, the welfare of the nation. Based on this post, President Bola Tinubu has directed Nigerian missions in South Africa to immediately establish a crisis notification unit for imperiled citizens, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Bianca Odumegu-Ojukwu, warned that the ongoing anti-foreigner campaign in the country may be more accurately described as Afrophobia than xenophobia. Yeah, to a large extent, this is correct. We cannot do tit for tat. If we start taking out one eye after the other, at the end of the day, we create a community of blind persons. What South Africans are doing is completely wrong. There is no justification for it. There is just no justification. It has been condemned, but I also don't know if the South African government have taken stern stance against that action, because these are hooligan activities which are supposed to be controlled. But be that as it may, the government has taken the right step in terms of putting mechanisms in place to ensure that these missions have an appropriate crisis response unit. But like I said, we don't need to wait for the president to tell us to create a crisis response unit. These are normal strategic imperatives that diplomatic missions are supposed to know of and are supposed to integrate. Now, this directive followed a phone conversation between Odumegu-Ojukwu and her South African counterpart, Ronald Lamola, on Thursday, amidst worsening tension in the Southern African nation. So I actually don't know why at this point in time, where the global politics, the global economy is shifting towards sustainability, you know, there are greater exploits in terms of artificial intelligence. Tech giants are dominating the space, and what we are talking about in Africa is people leaving your country and going back to their country, you shutting down companies and all of those kind of, you know, bullshit conversation that shouldn't be coming up in our political space. It's unfortunate that this is where we are in Africa. We have to actually question ourselves whether we are ready to move forward as a continent, or whether in the next 100 years we want to continue remaining a backward continent filled with hate, filled with detest for one another, and not committed towards growth. Nigerians in danger were advised to contact South African security authorities whenever dangerous situations arise. But I have a problem with this in particular, contacting South African authorities, because from some of those videos making the rounds on social media, you would see that people, I don't know whether they are South African authorities, formal authorities, or hooligans, but they are dressed in uniforms and they perpetrate this act. They don't stop their citizens from misbehaving and the like. So I don't know whether contacting South African security authorities, I don't know if this is going to work, and I don't even see the South African security agencies being responsive in this regard. But however, it is high time that we become proactive as a nation, where we have diplomatic missions in other countries, not just South Africa. We should have crisis response unit. We should have a crisis management plan. We should have a crisis, a business continuity or an operations continuity plan that will help to sustain operations in the event that these things happen. This is not a case of God forbid, or it's not my portion, like we usually say in the African context. It's about getting prepared and ready for eventualities, and ensuring that we have those mechanisms in place to be able to respond appropriately. Because this response coming at this time, where the crises are prolonged for, say, maybe about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, as the case may be, is late, But a station time says 9, and it's never late until action is taken. So let's swing into action and ensure that Nigerian citizens are protected and the dignity of the nation is preserved both locally and internationally.